I appreciate the opportunity to speak to your group today. And anytime we're given this opportunity to talk about some of the unique experiences that happen within the Black community and what we experience is always an honor to join in. Just to tell you a little bit, the BIPOC and BIWOC, that's BIPOC and BIWOC, which is Black, Indigenous people of color, Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. And then there's also Black, Indigenous, and other women of color. Some of the things that I do, just to clarify my experiences, I'm the chair of the Worcester County Commission on the Status of Women. I am on the board of the Massachusetts Council of Family Mediators. I am a fraud examiner. My PhD is in criminal justice and criminology, but I also have a background in accounting and financial forensics. So I do a lot of stuff. And oh, I forgot, I'm also the board president for the Board of Trustees of the Worcester Recovery Center and Hospital in Worcester, Mass. And I say all that to say that I try to create a space at the table. And the reason is I just want to read quickly. I'm better at writing poetry than reading it. But the first poem my mother taught me, I was about 3 years old. And I learned how to read at 3, but this was the first poem she taught me, and it was I Too by Langston Hughes. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow, I will be at the table when company comes. No one dares say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America. And that poem, as a little girl, spoke to me. And my mother said to me, the one thing the things they can never take away from you is your education and your faith. So how does this equate? I went through 3 sexual assaults, 3 separate situations, 8 years of domestic violence, and so much more. And then I found myself raising 2 boys on my own. And as a solo parent, I'm raising these boys and I'm seeing what's happening in America. And I had a choice. I can either be in fear as a single Black mother trying to raise 2 Black boys. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey. My kids started part of their life in Newark, New Jersey. And I could either be fearful, I can be angry. As things evolved, I could become a social media activist, meaning I just type behind the computer, or I can educate and learn and be at the table. So the things that are important when we look at our Black community are, for instance, policing. Yes, we can say anti-police, but we have to look at the problem. And the systemic problems are, first of all, self-leadership. Before we can change the system, we have to first identify, you can't de-escalate a situation until there's a form of self-leadership. Every single encounter with the Black person creates fear and anxiety. For the Black person that's in the car, for the police officer, unjustifiably so most of the time, for those around, for those watching, as we saw with George Floyd and the impact of the witnesses. I had an instance where when my younger son wasn't quite diagnosed yet, but he was 7 years old. In the school, he was symptomatic, hallucinating. The school calls the police in. When I get there, my son is shackled. My 7-year-old, feet shackled to a bench, hands in handcuffs. Another time I went to his school, they had an ambulance and he had handcuffs at 7 years old, strapping him to an ambulance bed. Why are you scared of a 7-year-old? And he was a skinny, small one because he was premature. Why are you scared of a 7-year-old? So when we talk about the PTSD in the Black community, it includes everything about all of our experiences, even our financial experiences. We talk about the Black family and we look at it and we say, wait a minute, there's problems in the community. There's problems here. Where does that root from? Yes, that roots from slavery. That roots from separating our families from Africa that brought here and then separating them again once we got here. But then we also looked at now our Black men are pitted against the Black women, almost as if whose life matters more, whose financial security matters more. So what happens? We are infighting because we're trying to get to the table. And it's like there's only one seat at the table. So what we do, what people like I do, and Dr. Reed and Dr. Ahmed and the rest on the panel, what we do is not only come to the table, we make sure that there's an opportunity to bring others to the table. Diversity is not just about diversity of color or ethnicity. It's about diversity of experiences and ideas. So by adding the Black experience to organizations, to systems, it's not just so that you have a Black face sitting there, but it's because our experiences have informed our survival. There are I'm taking a leadership, I'm on the advisory board at George Washington University, and I'm taking one of their leadership courses, and it's transformative leadership during disruptive times. And some of the things that they're teaching, I'm like, wow, we do that in Black homes every day. I went for a job one time and they said, we have a very small budget here, could you stretch it? My answer, I'm a single Black mother, I can stretch $1. There are some things that we do by nature because our negative experiences have fortified us in such a way that we can respond to even the worst situations. So with that said, how do we deal with how does it affect us? It affects us with imposter syndrome. We have a lot of Black people, myself included, that are educated. I have to look up sometimes all the letters after my name and my resume and all that stuff because I'm constantly trying to get more because we have to be 50 times better. So how do you ever feel as though you're good enough if you're always told you're still missing that one more thing? The psychological impact of buying a house, being told that this is the only way, that the type of car you drive, all of these things impact us. I just want to say one more thing when it comes to women and children and education in general. Women in general, we face a lot of gender disparities. But as Black women, we have to fight against being the angry Black woman syndrome. We have to talk in hushed tones where others, you're being assertive as a white woman or you're being outspoken as a Latina, but as a Black woman, you're angry. So we don't advocate for ourselves as much. We use terms like we instead of I because we're trying to make ourselves smaller to fit into a space. What psychological effect does that have on us? Well, strain theory in criminal justice tells us that what that does is that causes more and more strain within the home. So what does that lead to? Increased domestic violence, sexual violence, child abuse, arguing, heart attacks, all kinds of things. So we cannot look at any particular system and say, if we change criminal justice, life will be better for Black people. No, we need to change the education system and how children are diagnosed within the education system. And what is their access to resources and transportation within the education system? What are our findings when you go for a job and a job description says, for instance, as an accountant, they want somebody from the big four accounting firms, but you needed to get scholarships to do that. And then you have to get hired by those firms. And then you can go for the job after. So there's so many steps filtering us out so there can only be one at the table. What we're doing at this point is we're adding seats to the table. And I just want to encourage anyone that's listening, that's especially if you are a Black person, there is a seat for you because you have a butt. As long as you are on this earth, there is a seat for you at the table. Bring the chair with you. If you don't have a seat, stand there and let your presence be known. There are more ways to advocate than just yelling. Do something. That's what your hands are for. Thank you.